Move along to the issue of fracking, and particularly in relation to the Northern Territory and the shale gas industry there, which is in the early stages. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us what your agency's been doing to help the Northern Territory government to develop their regulatory environment for the onshore shale gas industry?
We're not engaged in the regulatory process at all, Senator. It's not our role.
Okay. Have you provided any advice to the Northern Territory government?
Not on the development of the industry in that form. We are providing some pre-competitive information to better understand the potential in the area. So we've done some work in the Georgina Basin around some of the rocks, but we've stayed strictly within the business that we're involved in, which is around working with our partners in the Northern Territory, the Northern Territory Geological Survey, to assist to provide that pre-competitive information.
And what does pre-competitive information involve?
It's information around de-risking areas in terms of looking at what their potential might be for a range of commodities, and we provide that to all of the industry. So that's why it's called pre-competitive. It actually provides an opportunity for the industry to, well, we do it on behalf of government to attract investment is the primary motivation for the activity. And what it does is de-risk areas and enable companies to make informed decisions around where they should invest their dollars in terms of the exploration process.
So this is work being done on behalf of the industry as opposed to...
No, it's not work for industry. It's work on behalf of government to attract investment from the industry.
Okay, and how's that work progressing?
The work that we've done in the Northern Territory, I think, it will be completed this year. So it's involved actually geochemistry, so the chemistry of some of the rocks that may have potential to produce gas or oil in one of the basins in the southeastern corner of the Northern Territory.
Okay, and have there been any hurdles or any unforeseen matters that you've had to...
Not that I'm aware of, Senator, no.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Bushby. Just on that, the shale gas, are there any operating shale gas operations in Australia? There's lots of coal seam gas ones, but shale gas.
The only one that would come close, which is not in operation but has identified a resource. There are two locations. One is in the Canning Basin in Western Australia, and the other is Santos have booked one well as a reserve in the Cooper Basin, where it's not so much shale gas as gas-saturated sands in the centre of the basin. So, in terms of unconventional gas that's not coal seam gas, they're the only two areas that have enough wells in it to demonstrate some potential at this point.
But there is a degree of prospectivity for shale gas in other areas of
There
Australia.
is, and as we've discussed previously, Senator, the big issue in that space for this country is probably there are issues around the geology, but the issues around infrastructure are probably equally as significant, and around whether or not the industry will be viable into the future, and in particular in the current environment with prices, that's an open question clearly. But there are a number of factors that are quite different to the circumstances in the US.
Okay, now just a couple of other questions quickly. There's been a little bit in the media about prospectivity in the Great Australian Bight. I think I've asked questions of you in the past about that particular region.
Yeah.
And so just to remind me, and forgive me if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, you indicated that it had similar levels of prospectivity to the Gulf of Mexico, or something along those lines, and that had thousands of operating oil wells, but hardly anybody had actually done any work in the Great Australian Bight up to now.
Correct. That's the comparison, Senator. So the Gulf of Mexico has hundreds of thousands of wells. It's very prospective, has a huge history of production. The Great Australian Bight is a similar area, and we had 13 wells in it up until this point. So really the prospectivity had not been tested. And another difference with the Gulf of Mexico is the real potential is actually in deep water, so it has awaited a technology development. We did some work early in the 2000s to demonstrate that the prerequisite criteria for a successful exploration program existed, and there are a number of companies there now who will test that, and I think the first drilling will take place this summer through BP.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Obviously, South Australia, that being in South Australia, my question's been answered about that, so... I was going to ask it, but your contribution was profound in terms of South Australia. Thank you very much, and have a good dinner.
Thank you very much.
I call... Yeah, yes. I call the officers of the National Offshore Petroleum Safety and Environmental Management Authority.
Let me guess, you're going to ask about the Great Australian Bight there?
Well, you reckon it might be come up in...
I'll leave that to you.